Hey, you guys. Hey, Jesus is Lord, y'all. Jesus is Lord, you guys. Okay, so this is probably going to be the hardest word or video I've ever had to record for this ministry. Jesus is Lord. So, God wanted me to go ahead and put out the testimony He was telling me to share. This is going to be a testimony on the recent separations that God just had me conclude in my separation process. Jesus is Lord. He wants me to be open with you guys about it, be vulnerable, and share some things that I normally would never share. I honestly want to just move forward and heal. These things are very uncomfortable to talk about. I have been going over this all day today with him. I've been going over it all day, sitting down, talking this stuff over with him, trying to see what all he wanted me to share. Jesus is Lord. Okay, y'all, so I'm going to go ahead and just dive right in there, okay? And I'm sharing this because God said somebody needed to hear it as a way to expose things. This may help vindicate some people inwardly. And overall, it's just supposed to help somebody, okay? Jesus is Lord. So this is a testimony on some of the recent relationships that God had me conclude in my separation process, all right? All right, y'all. So I'm going to mention this off back. Let me see. There's a... Okay, you guys. So I just had my daughter turn off the heat so y'all can hear me better, okay? So jumping into this testimony, basically, I guess I want to start from here. There was a dream that I've shared with y'all multiple times. And this dream is called Rejecting Toxic Unions and Taking Back Control, okay? So I've shared this prophetic dream with y'all multiple times, and I'm going to have to reshare it again because God has been bringing it up to me. And just in case you haven't heard it, it's in season. For some people right now, it's going to help them, okay? There was a dream that I shared with y'all about a week ago called Some People Just Gave Birth and We Need to Stop the Bleeding. And through that dream, God gave me some additional assignments, which was to share these testimonies. But he also showed me that some people, he's still trying to get them out of the delivery room and they need a little help. Right? So the testimonies are going to help set them free as well. And it's going to help vindicate them and it's going to help heal them. Okay? God wants to help some people be vindicated inwardly. Okay? The enemy's been playing a lot of mind games. There's been so many lies that have been told for years, for the longest, to them and how they've been treated amongst their family. So many of y'all generational curse breakers. God wants to expose all the lies and he wants to set the captives free. So this is going to be part of helping with that, right? So I want anyone listening to this to understand this is me being obedient. This is me serving God and his people in the way that he's instructing me to. Some of this stuff he's leading me to share, I feel petty for even saying it, but I'm literally feeling led to, and I've been praying, y'all. Y'all have no idea how much I've been praying about this word, and just asking God to take over and have his way so that it can help whoever is supposed to help, and I could just get through it, Jesus is Lord, and get done with it, okay? But, so anyways, stemming from that, but then also back to the dream I was just telling y'all about that I'm about to reshare called Rejecting Toxic Unions and Taking Back Control. I shared that dream with y'all multiple times. In that dream, there's a wedding taking place, okay? Jesus is Lord. The wedding feast is about to begin, but we got to change clothes, right? So there's a wedding feast that's taking place in that dream. There's a wedding happening. And that dream, I shared 3 scenes of that dream with y'all. In that dream, I'm attempting to attend a wedding with 3 different people, okay? And the very first scene of that dream, I'm attempting to attend a wedding with a guy I used to talk to, a guy I used to date. That was the narcissist y'all may hear me refer to. That was the relationship that broke me when I finally surrendered to God. I was tired of trying things my way. I was tired of me. And I was done. I said I ain't dating nobody else until God say he the one, because that narcissist, that was the one that broke me, okay? So the very first person in that dream that I was preparing to attend the wedding with was that guy, right? So first scene of the dream, I'm preparing as if I'm going to attend the wedding with him. But then that was one of the relationships that God broke me free from, okay? The next scene, I was preparing to attend the wedding with someone I just told y'all was a relative, okay? So now I'm telling y'all that the second person I was preparing to attend the wedding with was actually my mother's husband. It was my stepdad. And in that second scene of the dream, it was like we were having a daddy-daughter dance, and I was trying to make him happy, right? And it was basically... yeah, that was basically the second scene of the dream. I'm not going to go too deep on that dream because the testimony is already long enough as it is. I have so much to share with y'all. But I'm telling y'all this so when I do share that dream, you'll have a reference, and it could be better help you understand why God is leading me to share all this. Okay, so the second scene of the dream, I'm with my stepdad, and I'm preparing to attend the wedding with him. But something doesn't feel right, okay? Then the next scene of the dream, I'm with my mother. The person I said was a relative was my mother. And long story short, the end of the dream, I've decided that I'm not attending the wedding with any of them. I don't want to go. I don't want to go with none of them. God had to correct me and tell me I was going to the wedding feast because I was the bride. So I was going, but I just wasn't going with them. In that dream, God had identified to me that those were 3 toxic relationships I had in my life that I would have to let go of, that he was calling me out of. And one by one, he removed them from me, okay? Jesus is Lord. Jesus is Lord, you guys. All right, so I'm going to start from the very beginning, right? From the very beginning, so the recent people that God had me cut ties with were parents. And it was extremely hard for me, I did not want to make this video. I speak around a lot of stuff just out of respect. And because I really have no desire to hurt anyone or to make anyone look bad. Now, these people have talked poorly about me my entire life. And as I have surrendered to God and finally made him first in my life, and I've just been trying to be obedient in the moves I've been making. Long story short, you guys, they've been talking poorly about me this entire time, but I have no desire to get on here and do the same, okay? So this is not what this is. This is to help somebody, okay? But these were the recent relationships that God had me cut ties with that was very hard for me, that I'm still healing from, and I am currently processing, okay? So God wanted me to start from the very beginning of these relationships. Over the past couple years, ever since I surrendered to God, God has been exposing people to me, left and right, exposing family members to me, because I'm very family oriented. I love my family. And he's been testing everyone for me for the past couple years, ever since 2020. Okay, so let me give y'all some background real quick. Yeah, I feel like I'm just about to tell y'all all my business, but I was asking God, I've been on this all day with him, sitting with him all day on this, like, what do you want me to share? How much do you want me to share? And he told me to try to keep it about this recent separation as much as possible, but he wants me to take y'all through history just to relate or to better understand some things in your own life, because he says some of y'all's situation is similar to mine, okay? So one thing, let me point this out. Ever since I surrendered to God, he's been exposing things to me left and right, more about the spiritual, right? I've learned about witchcraft, that's actually factually a real thing. Like, people actually be out here doing witchcraft on people. I didn't believe in that until I surrendered to God. And then I he had me start a platform, and when I started a platform, I started to become under attack, and I learned it was a real thing, right? So God was exposing different tactics of the enemy to me. He was exposing people in my life and how the enemy's hand was behind all of it, right? That we were wrestling not against flesh and blood, but they were a part of the enemy's agenda to sow destruction, right? Jesus is Lord. So he had just been exposing things to me back to back. And it was times he would lead me to listen to a word where they were talking about witchcraft or a relative or somebody doing something against you, and when it pertaining to witchcraft. And for me, I felt drawn to those words, but I couldn't think of anybody who could possibly doing witchcraft on me and my family. Like, I grew up in the church. My family is church oriented. My people go to church like multiple times a week. They in the choir, like they got positions in the church and stuff. And not to say that witches can't be in the church, because I know they're in the church, but my thing was, I have never seen none of my family members, like the ones around me, I've never seen them even interact with anything that may even hint of them doing witchcraft. But the point is, God kept highlighting it to me, and as if they had done some of it to me some way, somehow, as if somebody was guilty of using it against me and my family, right? But I never, like I said, there's none of them that I could identify as, hey, they practicing witchcraft on me, right? I couldn't look at any of them and actually believe they would do that or they did that, right? So what God basically had to show me, why he kept highlighting witchcraft in regards to certain family members of mine, it was because not that they were doing like magic or, potions or spells, but the witchcraft they were doing was with their mouth. That's the witchcraft he was saying they were guilty of. They were gossiping constantly about me. They were spreading false narratives, okay? The enemy had been using them to sow destruction, to try to destroy me, okay? Because of these relationships, you guys, there are different areas in my life that I have struggled with pertaining to the call God has on my life, pertaining to me being in position, pertaining to me having the confidence and the boldness to speak up, to be who he created me to be. These attacks came from the enemy. He used the vessels that he was able to use in my life. And the whole point and purpose of it was to destroy, to cause destruction in me, right? To sow seeds of destruction, okay? Jesus is Lord. I'm just going to jump right in there, y'all, because I'm just talking way too long now. But I was trying to see what all to say, God. And so the bottom line is, God wanted me to share this for anybody who God may have shown you it's like somebody's exercising some type of witchcraft against you, or just, I don't know, like he's highlighting these things to you, and you don't see how it's possible in your family, but you may have a family situation that's similar to what I'm talking about right now, okay? Okay, you guys, so basically how God was basically showing it to me was that my mother and my stepdad were basically guilty of being used in the enemy's hands to sow doubt in me from a young age. Doubt, confusion, that they were being used in the enemy's hands to basically keep me from becoming who God created me to be, okay? The enemy watches us, he studies us at a very young age, and so he can recognize the generational curse breakers in the family. He can recognize, he picks up on certain things, okay, y'all? I'm gonna get into it because I haven't even started yet. Jesus is Lord. So God wants me to walk y'all through some of my family history just so you can get a better idea, and I guess so you can relate as well, okay? Okay, you guys, so I'm going to pause it right here, and I just want to make this brief recording to explain what you're about to hear next. So I've already recorded this word and everything in full. And after I finished recording the word, it was so long. I was so concerned that I overshared and I was just going to scrap the entire thing. I recorded this word. Well, I was going over this word on Thursday with God all day on Thursday. And then I finally recorded it. And then all of Friday, it took all of Friday for me to upload it because it was all videos, and the upload, like, the internet is slow sometimes. And I was struggling though because it was so long and I shared so many little details. But these were the things that when I sat with God to prepare for this, these were the things that I wrote down in my notes that he brought up. And so I felt so vulnerable and overwhelmed by the amount of things shared that, and how long the word was, I wondered if I, did right or if I overshared. And I started to scrap the whole thing. And I attempted to re-record this entire word and make it shorter and leave, and do less. And bottom line, long story short, God ended up showing me that he wanted me to share all these little details, okay? So this word is extremely long, but the point is to serve a purpose for whoever it's for, including these small details. So I just wanted to add that something God said, that growing up, there were a lot of different things that some of y'all may have went through. And you may have belittled the things you went through, or the things you went through may have been belittled, but they were a big deal. And so sometimes God will bring up old details from our childhood that we forgot about, or that we belittled, or it was just swept under the rug. And he wants to expose them, because a lot of those little small things weren't so little as you think they were. They were tactics from the enemy, right? So the enemy was using certain people in our lives to sow seeds of doubt in us, or to make us feel inadequate or unworthy, or, not worth enough, Or also something he brought to mind was how some people were on assignment from the very beginning to stop your growth, to stop your progress, to make sure that you didn't progress past a certain state, that if there was like any potential in you or anything you're really good at, to make sure that you didn't grow past a certain state. So those were just different things that he was identifying, the agenda and the assignment of the enemy that he worked through different people that he had access to in your life. And for a lot of y'all, it could be as children. And these people, the enemy used them, and they were able to hinder you in certain areas, right? Because the enemy had access to them. Now, it may have seemed innocent at the time, but you knew in your heart, in your mind, you knew it wasn't right. You knew it didn't feel right. If this is love, it's not supposed to hurt like this. You shouldn't be scared of people who are supposed to love you, and you shouldn't feel a need to protect yourself and have so many walls up all the time if you're around people that you can trust, if you're somewhere that's safe, right? Jesus is Lord. So anyways, you guys, I just want to add that real quick before y'all listen to these different little details and stories that I'm going to tell y'all, that I started to I'm not going to lie, I started to delete it and edit it out. And as I began working on it, God showed me that these stories were necessary and that somebody needed to hear them. And it was going to help somebody, okay? So I love y'all so much. I didn't mean for this to be this long, but I felt that it was necessary for someone, for whoever it's for, okay? All right, y'all, I'm going to let y'all continue and hear the rest of the testimony. So, starting from the beginning, y'all, and it's probably going to be long, but I'm just going to share how God leads me to share. But starting from the very beginning, I was raised in a single-parent household. It was just my mom and me and my two big brothers. So my mom had 3 children. She had me, I was the baby, and then my 2 big brothers. And Jesus is Lord. I'm originally from California. I was born in California, but raised out here in Texas. And so as early as I could remember, it was us 4. And the first apartment, I remember we were in like a 2-bed apartment. My 2 brothers shared a room. Me and my mom shared a room. Jesus is Lord. Father, help me. As a child, I remember, my memory is fuzzy from some things, and over the past couple years, God has been having to remind me of things that I forgot. And so I'm just going over all the things that he's led me to discuss and shine light on. So anyways, as a child, I remembered how much I admired my mother. I thought she was the prettiest woman in the whole wide world. Jesus is Lord. I thought she was the prettiest woman in the whole wide world. My mama was tough, y'all. She is tough. Like, she would turn heads literally anywhere we went, right? Especially around those times or whatever. There was this song they had talking about that a bad little yellow bone, and my mama, Jesus is Lord, she fitted to a T, right? So my mama, she's light skinned, small little waist, wide hips, and she was bow-legged. Mama was tough, y'all. She was tough. And so literally anywhere we went, she was turning heads left and right. There was always somebody trying to talk to her, right? Jesus is Lord. And I just thought she was the prettiest woman in the whole wide world. And I also, since I was around her a lot, because I was the youngest and my brothers were, always running off playing or whatever, I would hear a lot of conversations that they wouldn't hear, okay? And so something I heard on repeat, Jesus is Lord, something I heard on repeat was she would, tell different people often, and I would be around, about her different relationships with our fathers, right? So I told you I'm raised in a single parent household. Me and my two big brothers, all of us had different dads, right? All of us had a different dad. And I would hear her tell people on repeat how one of my brother's father raped her, then the other one beat her, and then my daddy left her. And I would hear this stuff on repeat over and over again. When she would tell different friends, she would never be talking to me about it. I would just be there, so I would hear how so-and-so daddy, raped her, then my other brother's daddy beat her, and then my daddy left her. And I heard this on repeat. And I would have nightmares sometimes that men were trying to hurt her, and I couldn't stop them. And like I said, my mom was a very beautiful woman, so everywhere we went, someone was always trying to talk to her all the time. And she would date often because she wanted to be married. She still really wanted to be married. And so she would date often. The guys, it would be like, I don't know, it seemed like soon as we would get used to somebody, all of a sudden they would just disappear. And I would always know when it was over because me and her shared a bed, so she would cry herself to sleep a lot of nights, and I would, tell her everything was going to be okay. And like I said, I would have dreams, a man hurting her, and I couldn't stop him, basically. And I felt like it was my job to protect her. And my brothers were getting into trouble all the time. They was getting into trouble all the time. And so I started telling on them, and they called me a little tattletale. I ain't care. But if I told on them, I could help them stop getting into trouble, because I hated when they got whoopings. My big brother was like, every time we get whoopings, you be crying too. He said whenever they get whoopings, I'd be crying like I was getting whoops. But I hate it when they got whoopings. So if I saw them plotting to do something bad, I would say, don't do it. I'd tell them not to do it. And if they don't listen, I was going to tell on them. Because I wanted everybody to be okay. I didn't want them to get no whooping. I felt like it was my job to protect everybody and to make sure everybody was happy. I just wanted to see my family happy. And I don't know. But anyways, that was like our little childhood setting. My oldest brother was like a father figure to me because he was like my protector. We would have different men, like, the guys my mom would date. They would be there for a little while, then they would move around. There was one guy that probably like the only one that she dated, that she actually ended up getting engaged to, who actually treated me like I was his. And he was the one that was like a big deal for me. But he ended up being just like everybody else. One minute they were engaged, and the next minute he was gone too. And there was no explanation. Jesus is Lord. I'm trying to see how much to share with y'all. God is so good, because I don't know how much to share. Something God brought to mind when I was younger, something else I used to hear my mother say often was how she wished she had all boys, right? So anytime somebody was pregnant, expecting a baby, she'd be like, oh, you pregnant? And like, what you having? And they'd be like, they don't know what they having. And she'd be like, oh, I hope you have a boy. You know, boys are a joy, girls are something else. And she would say over and over again that she wished she had all boys. I've heard her say it so many times, she wished she had all boys. And that's something I heard her tell people on repeat. And I was like, I'm like 6. I think I was 6 or 7, and I'm trying to figure out what was I doing so wrong, because I was getting good grades. I couldn't figure it out. My brothers were in trouble a lot, and I thought I was doing good, trying to keep everybody, you know, happy. But anyways, I grew up hearing her say she wished she had all boys, and I heard her say it my whole life, and I was the only girl that she gave birth to. And yeah. For me, from the beginning of my childhood, it was just always about being what other people needed, being what my family needed. But feeling rejected in a sense, in a process, right? Okay, you guys, I hope I'm doing okay on this video. But then fast forward time, God just wanted me to set the stage, I guess, give a little backstory, a history. And so fast forward time, my mom does end up meeting someone and getting married, right? Around that time, it's like my family broke apart though, because my oldest brother left right before she got married. She ended up putting him out. He was 16. He left and he never came back. And then my other older brother, he ended up leaving to go stay with his dad. And then it was just me, my mom, and her new husband. And I was happy. I was happy when she got married because I was the one that shared a bed with her. So I was the one that was there all the time she cried. So I was really happy that, you know, she had somebody. I was sad that my brothers were gone, because it was like as she was coming into this union, my family was breaking apart. The only family I ever knew was my mom and my 2 big brothers. And first, my oldest brother left, who was like a father to me, because he was my protection in our neighborhood. Like, he's my protector. Like, none of us looked alike, and we all had different last names because we had different dads. So people didn't know we was related until we told them. But when they found out who my big brother was, they ain't mess with me, okay? If they was messing with me before, once they found out who little sister I was, they ain't mess with me no more. So he was like my protector. And so he left. And then shortly after, my other brother left, and it was just me. And I was happy for my mom, because I know she had what she had been wanting, right? And I didn't like seeing her sad. And then, but I was happy too, because her husband had children. He had 2 sons and a girl too, just like her. And so I was happy that I would have somebody to play with. And they would visit him every other weekend. So I was excited about that too. So anyways, you guys, they get married. And long story short, we end up moving into a house, right? Our first house, right? And I have my own room. I've never had my own room before. I've always shared a bed with my mother. And so, and I had interesting dreams. I remember I told you I've been having prophetic dreams since I was a child. And so, but it was my first time having my own room. And they had got me a bed and everything. And so I found out that I wasn't sleeping with them, which was news to me, because I always slept with my mama. I just had been sleeping with her, so I was just used to that. And so when I found out that I wasn't going to sleep with them in their bed, I'm a child now. I'm thinking from a child who's always slept with their mother. When I found out that I wasn't sleeping with them in their bed and that I had my own room, and I was taking that in and understanding I was going to have to sleep by myself, I was a little scared. And I was just like, adjusting to it mentally that, oh man, I'm going to have to sleep by myself. I've never done that before. And as I was adjusting to that mentally, my mother's husband said, oh, she's jealous. Okay. He said, she's jealous. And I stopped and I looked, I said, no, I'm not. I'm not jealous. And he said, oh yeah, she's jealous. She's jealous because she can't sleep with you anymore, because he basically started saying that I was jealous of their marriage. It started from that though. It started from us moving to a house, me finding out that I was going to have my own room and I was going to sleep by myself for the first time. And I was scared. And I got quiet because I was scared. And I was trying to adapt to that, mentally having my own room and being by myself. And just everything changing, I was trying to mentally adapt to that. And the first thing that comes to his mind is I'm jealous, right? And so when he says that, I immediately say, no, I'm not. I'm like, that's not what it is. And so I was just scared, right? And so I'm saying it like that because it's important. It's certain labels that they attach to me. They said it one time and they stuck it to me like it was truth. And they said it over and over again. But it was no truth to it, right? So that's something that my mother's husband attached to me, saying that I was jealous of their relationship, and I really wasn't. I was happy for them, and I wanted my mother to be happy, right? I was just adjusting to the changes. But once he said it, he stuck it there, and it was something that it was a label they added to me, right? Jesus is Lord, y'all. I'm trying to explain this stuff. And let me see. Okay, so I'm adapting to the new living situation. I'm constantly being criticized. It's constantly something I'm not doing right. Then there are certain expectations of me that it's like they're expecting things from me that they haven't even instructed me to do or taught me how to do. And it was just like I said, overnight, everything changed. Then there's all these expectations. And before I know it, I'm having things spoken over me that aren't true. When I tried to speak up for myself, no one was listening. And it just constantly being over criticized to where I literally had to kind of isolate myself, because if you ever have to listen to someone constantly saying things about you that's not true, even when you try to correct them, and then I'm a child. So how much can I really say? I can say, I don't feel like that. This is how I feel. But if an adult chooses to see the worst in me or chooses to believe the worst and continually speak it out loud, it's like, what can I do? So that's the situation. I was constantly in situations like that, where they would see the worst they would see the worst pertaining to me, and they would speak it out loud. So God showed me there was a lot of word curses spoken over me that were never true. And it hurt for me to have to sit there and listen to something that I knew that wasn't true. So what I started doing, I didn't like being in the living room with them anymore, because one thing about me too as a child, and I didn't realize this until I surrendered to God, I could feel different spirits in the room. I could sense when someone didn't like me. I could sense when they didn't care. I can sense that stuff, right? Even as a child. So I already picked up on that my mother's husband wasn't feeling me like that. I could sense it in the room. I did not feel welcomed. And I felt like I was in a way. and then having all these additional things spoken over me that weren't true. So it made me uncomfortable and it made me sad, because I had two people that I loved and I wanted to be a part of their family, but and I saw the best in them, right? I saw the best in them, and I just wanted the same love back in return. But instead, it seemed like they saw the worst in me, and it was just constant criticism, word curses spoken over me. I felt verbally attacked sometimes, the best way I can describe it. And I battled with depression as a child because of it. So anyways, you guys, a lot of times I would go to my room because it seemed like the safest place in the house. It seemed like there were always different landmines all around the house. Like, I didn't know what conversations were safe to have. I didn't know if I said the wrong thing, if I would be criticized for saying the wrong thing, or if I would be accused of being something else that I wasn't, if something else would be spoken about me that wasn't true. So it just felt like the best thing for me to do was to be quiet. And then if I tried to speak up for myself, a lot of times it was like I was being disrespectful, like I'm talking back. And I'm like, no, I'm not talking back. I'm just saying that that's not how I feel. And so it was like I couldn't do nothing right. I just feel like I couldn't get right, okay? I feel like I couldn't get right. Jesus is Lord, right? And so, anyways, you guys, yeah, I don't want to talk about none of this. This feels so, I feel like a little kid right now talking about this. But these are all the things I took down in my notes today. So I guess somebody needs to hear it. I pray so, y'all. I pray so. So I ain't on here talking all childish like a little kid who, talking about old stuff, like, like some little spoiled kid or something. But anyways, one thing God pointed out to me while he wanted me to share all these little details. I belittled some of the situations I went through simply because I know people who went through way worse. I know people who have been, molested or something. I know people who have been abused physically or, sexually as a child. So I know people with far worse stories. So how dare I complain about this little stuff? That's how I used to see it. And, I should just be grateful. And that was my mindset for years, right? Even though things didn't feel right, and even though it was so many things that hurt me, and I felt like I was dying, as a child, and I just did not want to be here, right? And so I belittled my pain. I belittled my pain because of that. Okay, Jesus is Lord, you guys. Okay, so I'm gonna try to hurry up, okay? I don't even know if I really need to share all these little things. Okay, so some things I had to deal with, God brought to mind because I forgot to mention it. So I mentioned how beautiful my mom was and how much I admired her, but I looked nothing like my mother, right? I didn't look anything like her. And, I'm brown skinned, and then I was a tomboy. I was outside in the sun all the time, so I was constantly getting darker. And I was not an attractive kid. I was like a little ugly duckling. I looked like buckwheat. I was that kid that, you know how you see the real cute girls, like they look like Ashley Banks from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air or something. Like they look like, a little pretty girl with a little big bow. She looks perfect like a little doll. That was not me. The cute little girl that they'd be like, oh, she's so cute. She's beautiful, right? That's their compliment. My compliment was, she's so smart. She's so kind, right? Those were always my compliments. She's so smart. She's so kind. I was the smart, kind girl, okay? So I was a little ugly duckling. Me and my mom looked nothing alike. One thing I did have to deal with a lot was I know I wasn't the daughter that she necessarily wanted. I did not look like her. I was not an attractive kid. I would see her compliment other young ladies a lot often, and sometimes she would compare me to other young girls too, and she would tell me sometimes how much prettier I would be when I would lose weight because I was chunky. It's a little chunky butt. And so she was telling me how pretty I would be, how much prettier I would be when I would lose weight. It was different things that God wanted me to share that I feel funny about sharing on here, but I'm just going to share it. Let me see. Okay. And then I didn't like going shopping with her either, because when I would go shopping with her, she would always embarrass me in front of everybody. Say we were walking into a mall. On our way walking into the mall, she'd see somebody come out the store, say it's a heavyset girl or something like that. She'll be like, oh, she wrong for that. She wrong for what she wearing. Or she'll talk poorly about somebody from a distance. And then when we get up close to the person, she's going to smile in their face and say, hey, hi, how you doing? And we're going to go on our way. And I hated that. I hated that with a passion. It used to make me feel so bad inside. I hated going places with her in public, because she would talk about other people and then smile in their face. And then while we're looking for clothes, say I actually really do need clothes and I always needed clothes. Say we're in a store just looking around. If I stare at a dress for too long, if I was to stare at a dress for too long, she would quickly tell me, you can't fit that. And she would say it very loudly to where other people could hear it in the store. And the thing was, I was just looking at it because it was pretty. I know I can't fit it, you know. I was a little chunky butt, so I know I couldn't fit it. I just thought it was a pretty dress, and I liked looking at it because it was pretty. And so I would, you know, tell her, I know I can't fit it. I just thought it was pretty, you know. And so I started not to just want to go shopping with her because it was embarrassing. And yeah, it would be embarrassing and painful. And other little situations God had brought to mind to try to help me, like far as motivation with losing weight or whatever, right? She had this beautiful dress. It was beautiful to me. It was this all white dress that she had from when she was a teenager. It was the only piece of clothing she had from when she was a teenager that she still had left, that she held on to. And I'm the family type. Like, I was thinking ahead of time. And like, I always wanted something to pass down to my child from my mother, and that we can keep in the family and pass down and so on and so on, you know? And so she showed me that dress as like an incentive, like, when you lose weight, I'm gonna give you this dress. I'm gonna save it for you to motivate me. And I was just so happy because I never knew she had anything from her childhood. So when she showed me that dress she had from her childhood, and she said she was gonna save it for me, and that when I lost a certain amount of weight, that she would give it to me, I was so excited. I was so excited, y'all. And I would go out in her closet and look at that dress every now and then, just like to motivate me, right? Because I was so excited. I couldn't wait to lose that weight, get that dress from her. And I was going to pass it down to my daughter one day, right? And I remember one day I was walking down the hallway and I heard her in the room talking to my sister. Well, it's my stepsister. It was my stepdad's daughter, which I just call my sister. And I heard them in the room talking. And when I went in the room to see what they were doing, she had my sister try on my dress, the dress that she promised me. That was my incentive, you know, for when I lost weight. And she had my sister had it on, and she was looking in the mirror with it. And my mom was like, oh, you look so beautiful. You look so beautiful. And my sister was like, you know, she wasn't tripping off that dress. My sister had a lot of nice clothes. You know, she didn't need for no clothes. She had a lot of nice stuff. Her mom, you know, made sure she had a lot of nice stuff, so she didn't even need the dress. I think my mom was trying to find a way to bond with her. When she had her try on that dress, it was my mother's idea for her to try it on. And she was like, oh, you look so beautiful. And I was standing there heartbroken, and I asked my mother, I said, I thought you said that was my dress, you know, for when I lost the weight. And she said, oh, you can't fit this. And she waved me off. And that was basically it. That was basically that. So it was like the dress that was once an incentive for me to hit my goal weight that we were going to pass down. It was like a bargain. I don't know. She was trying to bond with her or whatever, but it was, y'all, that moment hurt me Jesus is Lord. That moment hurt me. Talking about this stuff is painful. It's not, it's like weird. It's so weird. For me, it was like a Cinderella moment, except it was my own mother who took the dress. It wasn't a step person. It was my own mother who did it. My sister didn't care nothing about that dress. She didn't care. She could care less about that dress. I don't think she ever even wore it when she took it. She was really nonchalant about it. So that was one moment, okay? And then something else God had brought to mind, different things that I was in sports. I was in sports in middle school. I played volleyball for a while, and then I also ended up being on the basketball team too. When I played volleyball, my mom could never come to any of my games because she was working, right? But when I played basketball, she had became a stay-at-home wife. And so she was home all day. So she could have came to my games, but she didn't come to any of them. And so like the entire season, she didn't come to none of my games. And then our final game, my final basketball game, my little brothers, through marriage, my stepdad's children, they had came over one weekend when I was due to play. And they were begging her. They begged her, please take us to Tiffany's game so we can watch her play. They begged her to take them. And because they would ask her to take them, but she said she didn't want to go because she said it sounded boring. So I was just happy to be able to play, that she allowed me to play. And so they begged her. It's like, please, it's her last game. And so she's like, okay. So she took them to come see me finally play. And it was my very last game. The last game of that little season. And I didn't even get to play. Look, I didn't even get to play because it was our final game, and we were playing one of the hardest teams that we had played all season. And my coach actually cared about winning. I was on the team, but I was not a starter. And so she kept the starting five on the floor the whole time because the team we were playing against was hard, and we still lost. And I was so disappointed because my mom and them finally came to see me play, and I didn't even get to play. And so anyways, at the time, I just felt like, I was just grateful that she even allowed me to. God brought to mind the lack of support I had growing up, the fact that I never really had anybody showing up for me. I was very independent at a young age because I felt like I had to be. I also had to mentally and emotionally protect myself from my own parents, starting from a young age. And because they would treat me different than they treated all their other children, and I just never knew why. And it was something else. Let me see, y'all. Okay, y'all. Another thing was there was this writing opportunity that I had. When I was in high school. I mentioned before that I really enjoy writing. Writing was therapeutic for me, and it helped me get through my childhood. It helped me get through my teenage years because I really struggled through my teenage years, y'all. I told y'all one of the reasons I reshared the testimonial about how I started my relationship with God was so I wouldn't have to over-explain certain things. But when I was younger too, I actually dealt with a time frame to where I was heavily being attacked by demons in my sleep, right? I've been having prophetic dreams since I was a child. So it was a time frame when I was younger where I was heavily being attacked by demons in my sleep. So I was dealing with that as well, but I didn't really have any support at home, and no one really listened to me. And it was like the way I was treated with them didn't help either, because it was always something I was doing wrong. I was always the scapegoat. I was always the problem. It was just always something that was wrong with me, right? And so, And so anyways, another thing God had mentioned, like I said, there was a writing opportunity I had in high school. My English teacher she really liked my writing. I used to write a lot of poems. I would write scripts, some books I was working on, and then just, whatever assignments we had, right? And I think I had let her read some of my personal stuff too. And so one day she pulled me aside and she told me that there was this group who they were looking for certain students who were like really gifted with writing, right? It was this program they had. But they don't just sign up anybody for this program, and that they had been looking at our school. Well, they wanted to see if there were any students in our school that would qualify, right? And she said she was thinking about me, right? And so long story short, she asked my permission to share my writings with the people, right? With the guy who was coming from the organization looking for more gifted students. Who were gifted in their writing like that, right? I don't remember what the organization was called, y'all, because this was so long ago. But I know it was a big deal. And at my school, it was only 2 people that they chose. And I was one of them, and there was another student from a different English class. And out of the whole entire school, they only chose us 2. That they saw having the potential to take their writing to the next level, right, with this program. And so I was excited because I really enjoy writing. It was a passion of mine. And then to have somebody look at my work and pick it out and be like only 2 of the people out of the school, that they chose. And so they set up a meeting. The guy wanted to meet with my mom and tell her about the program to get me set up for it. I'm thinking it's a done deal because it's like only 2 of us they picked out of everybody in school. So I'm like, man, they actually picked me. They actually picked my work. And so he set up a meeting to meet with my mom. I tell her about it. I'm excited. He come through for the meeting. She's smiling. She's acting so interested while she's talking to him about it. And he's like explaining to him, like her work, her like my creativity. He read my stories, some of my poems, and he's like how the talent was there. I needed to work on punctuation and stuff and grammar, but like that talent, that raw talent was there, right? And he was just talking to her about my future with writing and taking it to the next level. And part of the program, there are some books that I would have to purchase, right, that come along with that I need for the program. And she nodded, my mother nodded and acted like super interested about it. And right after that, like we had that meeting with him, and I'm sitting there smiling the whole time because this is something I'm passionate about. And my mom looks like she's excited about it. Well, she looks interested, and so she smiles at the man. Everything seems like it's going good. We walk him to the door. We tell him good night. As soon as she closes the door, I'm standing there looking at her. I'm like, so when are we getting the books? And she says, I'm not buying them books. He's just trying to get our money. And y'all, I was immediately just crushed. And I was just trying to explain to her that, no, he's not a salesman. He's not a salesman. This is a special program. This is real. He's not selling anything. He only went to 2 students' homes out of my entire school, me and one other student. He wasn't trying to sell anything. Like, they actually picked out my work amongst all the other students in our school. And so, like I said, he only literally visited only 2 students' homes, and it was mine and another student. But she was convinced that he was just trying to get her money, and that was all there was to it. And so just opportunities I had when I was younger, they were missed opportunities because it was as if with me, it wasn't worth investing in, And these were just different things that God brought to mind, okay, y'all? But at the time, as a child, I just kind of like waved it off. I mean, I was sad. I had my moment where I was disappointed because it was an opportunity I was very excited about. But then I was just like, I was used to it. And I mean, like, what you gonna do, right? And so, you just continue, right? And so that's what I would do a lot. I would have my moment of disappointment. And then what I'm gonna do, I gotta move on, right? I'm a child, right? Can't make my mama, get the books and let me get in a special program that is rare, that they don't let everybody into, and take my writing to the next level. I can't make that happen. So, but anyways, yeah, so those were one of the moments that God brought to mind that I forgot about. Jesus is Lord. Oh my God, you guys. Oh my God. Okay, so then the next thing on my list, Jesus is Lord. There was a time I called myself having a little boyfriend, right? I was a senior in high school. And he was in college. He wasn't the first guy I talked to, but he was the first one that I was sharing with my family like that. And I was in high school. He was a senior in college, and he had a child. He had a daughter. And he had a baby girl. And so I was nervous about telling my mom about it because I knew how she saw me. I knew how she looked at me. And I remember I had told she's my sister-in-law now, but she was my brother's girlfriend at the time. I had told her about him, showed her a picture or whatever. And then I went ahead and reluctantly told my mom because I didn't know how she would respond. She would make, weird comments about my size growing up. And I know how she saw me and how she viewed me. And so anyways, long story short, I show her the picture. I tell her, I have a boyfriend or whatever. And she's like, oh, you got a boyfriend. And then she goes in there to talk to my brother and his girlfriend at the time. And he's like, so y'all, Tiffany told y'all she got a boyfriend. And his girlfriend is like, oh yeah, you seen the picture? And she's like, oh, there's a picture. And I'm like, oh Lord, I wasn't gonna show her the picture. And so I'm like, yeah, I have a picture. And so I went to go get the picture to show her. And I was nervous, but I was kind of confident too, because he was attractive. He was light skinned, had green hazel eyes, and what they would consider good curly, like a low cut hairstyle, whatever. He was like the pretty boy type. And the reason I'm going into detail with that was because my mother didn't really look at me as pretty like that because of my size, right? And so I was confident though, since he was so nice looking, that she would approve, because she was into looks, right? And I thought too, by her seeing me be with somebody who looks nice looking, she would see me as attractive, like nice looking too. Because she made a lot of sideways comments about me in appearance growing up that I had to hear. And so when she saw the picture, she stared at it with her hands on her hip, and she didn't say anything. And I nervously said, he's handsome, right? He's handsome, right? He's cute, right? And she said, oh yeah, he's very attractive. So why is he talking to you? And I nervously looked around and was like, well, what do you mean? And I knew what she meant, because like I said, she's made comments on my appearance multiple times when I was younger, but she normally don't do it in front of company. And my brother's girlfriend was there, and I was just getting to know her, and it was embarrassing for her to talk like that in front of her about me. And it hurt my feelings. It was embarrassing, even though I knew how she felt, like, you know what I mean? So it was like, she said, yeah, he's very attractive, so why is he talking to you? And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, don't guys like that like skinny girls, so why is he talking to you? And after that, y'all, I just kind of blacked out. Not blacked out, but I zoned out. I zoned out, and I don't remember the rest of the conversation after that. It would be different moments where certain things would be said, and it would just be like I would just zone out mentally and emotionally, and I wouldn't remember the rest of what was said. It would be like I would go on autopilot, and that would happen multiple times. And that's why sometimes I'll be feeling like my memory is a little fuzzy. And Jesus is Lord, y'all. These were things that should have never happened, okay? I'm running through these things because God had me going over these things. I'm going to finish the other things that I'm not going to say everything because it's way too much, but just things that me and him were talking about today. Another thing we talked about was my prom. I had been looking forward to prom ever since ever since I started high school, right? My freshman year of high school, I could not wait till prom. Not because of dating anybody or nothing like that. I couldn't wait till prom because prom was going to be my moment. Prom was going to be my Cinderella moment where I looked beautiful, where that's the moment in the movies where the girl like goes from the ugly duckling to like this beautiful princess, right? And it's like her moment, right? That transformation moment where she looks like a princess. And that was going to be me and my mother's moment, I thought. That was going to be when I would look beautiful to her, right? Where I would get dressed up in a nice gown and she would see me as beautiful, right? And I could not wait till prom for that. I had picked out my prom dress through a magazine. I was like, I want to lose a certain amount of weight to get in it. And now here's the thing, you guys. I was thick. I was what they call big bone. My mom fixated on my size like that because I didn't look like her. But amongst my peers, the guys I like, they always liked me back. They just saw me as thick. And if they were to be like, which Tiffany you talking about? Because y'all know my name is Tiffany. They'd be like, Tiffany with the hips. So my peers, they just saw me as thick or whatever. But for my mother, I wasn't what she wanted me to be. I wasn't the size she wanted me to be. I didn't look like her. I wasn't, her idea of, attractive in that sense. You know what I mean? I was always hearing how much prettier I would be when I lost weight. And so, anyways, I'm looking forward to prom. I'm so excited about it. It's finally senior year, right, for prom time. And I'm so excited about it because this is my moment with my mother that I have been dreaming about, where she's going to see me as beautiful. And I basically, I tell her, yeah, prom is coming up, and I'm excited about it, whatever. And when I mention prom coming up, she starts talking negative, and she basically says it's not a big deal, and that she didn't even go to her prom. During her prom, she was pregnant with my oldest brother, so she didn't go to her prom. So she started, talking down about it. No, it ain't a big deal. And she was so negative about it that it broke my heart. And I didn't want to go anymore. I had been dreaming about prom since I entered high school because it was supposed to be our moment where she would be excited to, help me, get beautiful in the gown and the makeup and the nails. And that was supposed to be our moment, our mother-daughter moment. And she didn't do any of that. Instead, when my prom came up, she complained so much and, talked about how she didn't even go to her prom and it's not even a big deal. And she complained so much, I didn't even want to go. And I decided I wasn't going to my prom, right? Now, y'all, let me tell y'all how good God is and how strategic he is. So growing up, I felt like a parentless child. I felt like I had nobody around for me. I was just constantly criticized. It was always something I was constantly doing wrong, but not told how to do it right. Had them looking at me, always finding the worst possible, like seeing the worst. And it wasn't even true. And God had to show me later they were projecting. They were always projecting. The things they would speak over me was projections. And so, long story short, God made sure I had a lot of play mothers, and they would step in and they would do the things that my mother should have did but didn't do. And so I went to church. We went to Bible study one Wednesday night right before prom. And I went outside for something. Sometimes I'll just be walking around the parking lot because I like to think a lot. And I was walking around the parking lot. I think I was thinking or something. But church was about to start. And so I was about to go inside for church. And one of my play mothers pulled up. And I'm like, hey, mama, you liking my car? Because I like her car. I told her, she going to have to give me that car when she done with it. But so I was like, hey, mama, I was talking to her. And she said, you ready for prom? And I was like, oh, nah, mama, I'm not going to prom. And she said, what you mean you're not going to prom? And I was like, yeah, no, it ain't a big deal. I'm not going. It's not a big deal. And she's like, Tiffany, you got to go to your prom. And I was like, well, I said it's not a big deal. And long story short, I told her I couldn't go anyways because I don't even have a dress. And it was coming up this weekend, and I didn't even have a dress. And she said, no, you going to your prom. We were headed into Bible study because church was about to start. We went from we were headed into the door. We were about to go to the doors to her saying, come on. And I said, well, I said, church about to start. She said, they'll be okay. And we went from we were about to walk into the church to her dragging me back to her car. She took me to Dillard's. While they was having Bible study, she drove me down the street to the mall to Dillard's. She let me try on dresses. She told me to pick whichever one I wanted and she would buy it. And she watched me try on dresses. And I picked out the prettiest one. It was an all-white dress. It almost looked like a wedding gown. It was so pretty. It was like $300. And I wasn't looking at prices. She just let me pick out whatever. And she said whichever one I wanted, she would buy. And when I found out how much it was, I felt bad. But she bought it. And there was another woman at church who, I didn't call her my play mom, but she was like a mentor. She bought my shoes. So I had my play mama bought my dress. One of my mentors, who was like one of the youth teachers, she bought my shoes. And then my other play mother made sure that my makeup was done and I had my nails done. And my friend, Ashley, came with me. She made sure she got her ticket so she could go with me to prom too. So it was like I had my own little Cinderella dream team to get me off to the prom. And all my mom had to do was drop me off to my play mother's house, because I still had to go get dropped off to get my makeup done. And so all she had to do was drop me off to her house to get my makeup done. And my mom complained the entire time. The entire time I was getting ready for prom, she complained about anything she had to do in regards to it. But God surrounded me around women that poured into me, even when my mother didn't, right? Jesus is Lord. And so, yeah, that was that. My prom was like a little Cinderella moment. My play mama said, oh, no, you going to prom. And we skipped church, we skipped Bible study, and she took me to that mall and got me a dress. And then made sure I had everything else I needed to go. And that was that, y'all. Okay, you guys, and I'm going to try to run through this other stuff. Other big moments God mentioned was like my graduating my senior year. I almost wasn't able to graduate because my mom didn't pay my senior dues. The beginning of the school year, they told us we had senior dues. I told her about them. I think it was a little over $300. My dad did send child support every month. I think he sent about $300 every month. But I had made it to the end of my senior year, and I think the principal or somebody told me I had all my credits, but I wasn't going to be able to graduate. Like I was going to get my diploma, but I wasn't going to be able to walk across the stage because my mom hadn't paid none of my dues. And so I told her, Mama, they said I can't walk across the stage because none of my dues are paid. And so she panicked, and she was like, she's going to take care of it because my dad had already had his ticket to come out. Him and his wife had a ticket to come out and see me graduate too because they lived in a different state. And so, she had the money to pay it. She just didn't pay it. A lot of times it was like I would see her spend money on my little brother, because they did have another child together. My mom and her husband had a child together, my baby brother, after they got married. And oftentimes she would spend money on her, him, and my little brother, like buying stuff like Tommy Hilfiger, Polo, Eddie Bauer, this and that, for them. And then she would say she didn't buy me things because I didn't want to go shopping with her. And so that was her reason for not buying me things. And a lot of times I would just patch my pants up a lot because I would get holes in my pants a lot. And I would patch them up so they could no longer be patched. And then we would finally go get me some clothes when there was like really no other choice. And so the point is, I knew she could have paid my dues. Anytime it was something dealing with investing with me, she didn't do it, right? They didn't do it. And my senior year, when it was time for me to graduate, and they were telling me I wasn't gonna better walk across the stage because the dudes weren't taken care of, she told me she'd take care of it. And I came to find out that all she did was pay enough for me to get my cap and gown. So just so I could walk across the stage, because my dad and his wife were already flying out. So she knew that I better walk across that stage, because he had been sending money every month. So she knew that I better walk across that stage. But the thing was, since she didn't pay all my dues, I couldn't get my yearbook. I couldn't get none of the stuff that you're supposed to get, that all the seniors get, a part of their package. I couldn't get it because she only paid, she asked them how much it cost just to get my cap and gown, and that's all she paid. And I remember when my dad came out, I overheard part of their conversation, and he was letting her know that since I was turning 18, that he was going to stop sending child support soon, and that they would be talking about that. And I overheard that in the conversation. Oh, Jesus is Lord. That's so rude. I'm so sorry, you guys. That is so rude. Ew. Oh my God, that's so nasty. I'm so sorry. I've been drinking a lot of water. I just burped. And then I had some lemonade. Oh my God. Ooh, Lord. I'm sorry, y'all. But anyways, I wonder if I'm gonna edit that out. We'll see. Oh, Lord have mercy. But yeah, so anyways, that basically happened. And I graduated from high school, you guys. I had my first job. Later, I ended up getting a job at Blockbuster. Y'all remember Blockbuster, right? I ended up getting a job at Blockbuster. And at Blockbuster, when I had the job at Blockbuster, I didn't have a car. And so my mom had to take me to work. And she would take me to work, and she would have to pick me up from work too. And I would close often. The store manager was really hard working, and she liked me to work with her because we got a lot done whenever we worked together. But my store manager was such a hard worker. She would be working past the time, right? So say we supposed to get off at 9:30. Sometimes we'd be up there to 9:45 sometimes, but I can't control that because, you know, so we didn't always get off at the time we were supposed to. And so sometimes my mom would have to wait a little longer, and I can't leave my store manager. We had to break down the tills. We had to make sure everything was in a safe. And so my mom started to complain about me not getting off soon as she pulled up. And I had to explain to her I can't just, leave my store manager. So she said, well, you're going to have to figure out something, because I'm not going to keep coming to pick you up. You're going to need to get a car or figure out something how to get to work. And then I felt bad. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't know what to do because I didn't have no car money. And so anyways, but I was just feeling bad. Like, dang, like a bother. A lot of times I felt like a bother because it seemed like anytime I required help or need of something, it seemed like I was a bother, because there was always a complaint behind it. There was always complaining when it came to showing up for me. Anytime it required showing up for me, it seemed like a bother. I skipped this part. God just reminded me, okay? Y'all, fresh out of high school, I was supposed to go to college, right? I graduated a Texas Scholar and amongst who's who of American students, but I believe it's a Texas Scholar thing. It was certain courses that I took, in high school that I didn't have to take, that my counselor told me to take so I could graduate a Texas Scholar, so I could have money for college. And so I took aviation courses. I didn't have to take that stuff. I didn't want to be no pilot, but it was certain courses for the program I had to take to graduate a Texas Scholar to have money towards college. And I took those courses. And matter of fact, my senior year, I honestly could have graduated my junior year because I had enough credits because I took pre-AP classes. So I had extra credits. But I literally stayed there as long as I did to graduate a Texas Scholar and take courses I didn't even necessarily need. My senior year, I only had 2 classes, like 1 or 2 classes that I would show up for, and I had co-op, and I would leave. I would be there for like a couple, like for those 2 classes, then I would leave, and I would go to work afterwards. I had a job at the mall, working at Foot Locker at the time. See, y'all, I'm going back and forth. Point is, I always kept a job, okay? I always kept a job. So I've been having a job for well, the point is I used to always keep a job. So my senior year, I would do co-op, then I would leave after I take my classes, I would catch the bus and go to work at Foot Locker, right? Jesus is Lord. But when I graduated from high school, what God just reminded me of, when I graduated from high school, I was trying to go to college next. I was trying to, because that's what everybody was telling me. Not my mother per se. My mom, her husband didn't talk to me about college. Other people were talking to me about college. My dad was telling me, you need to, start looking into college and stuff. Or people at church who were like youth leaders were talking to me about it. The only time my mom and her husband would show interest in school for me is when they were talking to somebody at church and they would pretend to be interested. But then they wouldn't say nothing about it when we got back home. And so anyways, both of them were narcissists. God ended up showing me. I'm telling y'all all this stuff because this is what me and God this is things he's highlighted to me during this process. So I'm so sorry I'm talking a lot, but I want to get all this stuff out so I can get to the nitty gritty. Jesus is Lord. And I hope I'm not on here sounding petty and childish and like a big old crybaby. Oh, I pray I don't sound like that. But, and so anyways, I was supposed to go to college right afterwards. So when I was trying to fill out the application so I could claim the money that I was supposed to get towards school, with graduating as a Texas Scholar, taking classes I didn't have to take. They told me it was money there for me. I had filled out the application as much as I could. And then I got to a part of the application, and mind you, I'm doing all this by myself. I had got to a point in the application where I needed my mom and her husband's tax information because I was 18, I was on their taxes. So I needed their tax information. And I asked her, I said, Mom, I'm trying to fill out this application for college and I just need your tax information. It won't let me bypass this part of the application. And I needed her tax information. And so she told me she said she got to go through all her papers. And once she go through her papers, she'll give it to me. And I was approaching the deadline. There's a certain time frame I had to get this information in if I wanted to start school in the fall. And so, she said she got to go through her papers. And so then my dad called me. He asking me about it. Have you put the application in? And I'm like, I filled it out as much as I could. I don't have her tax information. I asked her for it. She said she got to go through her stuff. And he said, well, tell her you'll go through it and you'll find it. This is your future. And y'all, I was so soft-spoken because I was the type of kid you did not have to whoop. You didn't have to whoop me. All you had to do was yell at me. You yell at me, I'm going to go cry. If you yell at me or if you show disappointment in me, I'm going to go cry. I'm going to cry. I'm going to cry. And so that's the kind of kid I was. You did not have to yell at me. All you had to do was show that I disappointed you. Oh, no. You didn't have to whoop me. You didn't have to whoop me. If you yelled at me or you showed disappointment in me, I'm going to go in my room and cry. That's the kind of kid I was. I was real sensitive. And so when she told me she'd look for it when she get to the chance, basically, I left her alone because I didn't want her to snap at me. And it was just like, a lot of times I would feel like I was bothering them or whatever. And so, Jesus is Lord. Lord have mercy. And so my dad was like, this is your future. Tell her that you will go through her paperwork. You know, you'll go through it. You'll help her go through it. She don't have to, so you can get that paperwork and get your application in. And so I'm like, okay. And again, I'm real soft-spoken. And this is what I'm talking about, how the enemy uses certain people, and it can be parents, to keep you quiet or make you afraid to talk. I had to overcome a fear of speaking because of my childhood, and because my voice was constantly shut down, and because I had to battle so many insecurities from constant rejection from people who were supposed to protect me, invest in me, speak life over me. And instead I had word curses spoken over me. I had no one showing support. It always seemed like it was something I was doing wrong. And it was constant insecurities I was dealing with because of things that were spoken over me and things I was being accused of that weren't true. And then just like, I just wanted to be a part of the family. I wanted to be loved the same way they loved everybody else. And for some reason, I was treated differently than everybody else, right? And you know how they talk about that being for, you know, the generational curse breakers, the scapegoats. It's like that for the black sheep, right? So that was me. Jesus is Lord. And so anyways, my dad says, this is your future. Talk to her, ask her, you know, tell her you'll go look through the paperwork and you'll get it, right? And he's like, just, you know, say it respectfully or whatever. And I'm like, okay. And he don't realize I do be saying stuff respectfully. And so I went to her and I was like, hey, you know, Ma, I can help you. I can help you go through your paperwork so I can find it for you. So I can get this application in. This was days later, right? So I gave her time to go through it. She never went through her paperwork. She never went through it, still never mentioned it, never said nothing about it. So this is days later. I'm offering to help her so I can get my paperwork in so I can go to school. She snaps at me and she tells me she don't need me going through her stuff, and she'll get to it when she gets to it. And that was it. That was it for me. Y'all, I'm telling y'all, I was a little sensitive kid. She snapped at me and told me don't touch her stuff. She'll get to it when she get to it. And that was enough for me. And I went in my room and cried. And I said, forget that, them papers, and forget school. And I had a job at the time. I was working at a daycare, and I thought I was making good money. And I said, I'm just going to keep working here, right? I ain't had no bills like that. I had a cell phone bill I was paying. And like I was like really, what do you call that? I took a lot of care. It's like I took care of myself a lot. So with me having a job in high school, my senior year and stuff, I had my own phone bill. I was paying my own phone bill. Sometimes I was even buying my own personal stuff, like my own pads. I know TMI or whatever, but this is stuff that I was doing that other people were telling me was wrong, right? I was very independent. I tried not to bother them for anything. But my mom and them was getting child support and stuff too. And so anyways, I ended up just saying forget about school because I couldn't get her to cooperate with me to get their paperwork. And I had a job. I was making some money. I thought I was doing good. Then fast forward, about 2 months later, I ended up getting a job at Blockbuster. That's the daycare I was working at, I could walk to. So I was walking there. It was at a church that was maybe 15, 20-minute walk. Not 15 minutes. Yeah. And so I would walk to work and walk back, so I didn't have to worry about nobody picking me up. But then I got a job at Blockbuster, and I couldn't walk there like that. I had walked there before, but it's way too far. And there was a lot of loose dogs along the way. It was like a lot of loose dogs along. So it really wasn't safe to walk, and then especially not at night. And so, yeah, so she was complaining about back to Blockbusters, y'all. I know I went back and forward, but God remind me I skipped something. So back to Blockbuster. Okay, so I had this job at Blockbuster. Yeah, this little lip gloss I had on is coming off. But I had this job at Blockbuster, and she was complaining about having to wait and me not being ready right away as soon as she wanted to pick me up. And so she said, I'm gonna have to get a car. I'm gonna have to figure out something because she ain't gonna be waiting on me. And so I said, okay. And I didn't know what to do. And so then the next thing you know, she had this bright idea, right? She was driving a van at this time. It was a silver van, and she hated this van. She hated this van because it kept embarrassing her. And my mom and her husband were very big on looks and appearances. So she really hated this van because it needed work done on it. And there was something wrong with the van to every single time she would stop at a stop sign or a stoplight, the van would shake and it would cut off completely. Like every single time she would press the brake on the van, it would start shaking and then it would just cut off. And so it was embarrassing her, and she wanted a new car, but she couldn't afford to get another car because she was still paying the car note on the van, right? And this was the same van she was picking me up in from work. And so she was telling me I'm gonna have to find a vehicle, I'm gonna have to figure out something because she don't want to wait on me no more. And so next thing you know, she has the bright idea to help me, she says. And she tells me, what if I give you my van and you take over the car note for my van, and then you'll have a car, you'll have a way to work, and you'll have a way to get back home. And in my mind, I'm thinking, my first car. I'm so excited. And so she wanted me to take over the car note for her van, right? And she was going to get herself a brand new car. The car note for her van was $500. I didn't know this was really a bad deal for me. And it was a bad deal because the work that the van needed on it was very expensive. And even though I had a job, me paying a $500 car note and then being able to afford to get the van fixed, it wasn't likely that it was going to happen anytime soon. And so I was just so excited by the idea. I already was feeling like a bother. My mom was already complaining about taking me to work and picking me up, and I was feeling really bad about being an inconvenience. And so I felt like, oh, here's the solution, because I was starting to stress about it. I was stressing about like how I'm gonna get to work and how I'm gonna get back. And so I'm like, oh, okay, so I got a ride now. And so I was so excited, my first car. Y'all, the first week I got that car from her. As soon as I got the car from her and I agreed to it, she went out and bought herself a brand new car. And she was so happy. It was a beautiful car. And I had my first car, and I was happy. I didn't know no better. And so the first week I had that car, the first couple of days, I got into an accident because it was a small accident. The car would literally cut off. If you stop it even a little bit, it would shake and cut off. So I was driving, and there was a lot of cars, and we were coming up on a stoplight, and I didn't want to hold up the line, so I tried to shift and get into the other lane so I didn't have to come to a complete stop, because if I would have came to a complete stop, the car would shake and cut off, and then it would hold up traffic. And so with me trying to shift and get into the other lane, I ended up hitting a car that came out of nowhere. That car was flying, and I felt so bad. But the guy ended up being a mechanic. I kept telling him I was so sorry, asking him, was there anything I could do? He told me, don't worry about it. It was a little dent. He'll take care of it. And that was that. And then, so I had an accident. This all happened in the first week. And then I think shortly after that, I got pulled over by a cop because I was driving home. There were several stop signs on the way home. And every time you stop the car, if you make a complete stop, it's going to cut off. It's going to shake and cut off. So when I came to the stop sign, I slowed down just a little bit. And then I didn't do a complete stop on purpose, because I was trying to avoid the car cutting off, because it felt like every time it cut off, it felt like, I don't know, that car was feeling like it was not going, sometimes it felt like it wasn't going to start back up. And so I ended up getting pulled over by an officer, and he told me at the stop sign, you didn't come to a complete stop. And I apologized, and he just gave me a warning. And so all that happened in less than a week of me having that van. And I'm at work and I'm excited. I don't know no better. I'm excited about this car, my first car. And my supervisor is bothered. She's really upset. And she's saying, I don't like this, Tiffany. And I'm all excited about it. And, you know, when you at work, you be talking about your day with your coworkers. And so she was aware of the accident. She was aware of the cop pulling me over. She is aware of the problems with the car. And she said, Tiffany, I don't like this. And I said, it's okay. I said, I'm gonna get it fixed. I said, all I gotta do is save my money and I'm gonna get it fixed. And she said, Tiffany, she said, I don't like this. No, I don't like this, Tiffany. I don't like this. And I could not understand, you know, what the problem was. And she said, you're a young lady, Tiffany. You're a young lady. You shouldn't be driving around in a car like that that's cutting off in the middle of the night. Because I would drive home late from work sometimes. And she said, I don't like this. And she was worried about me getting home safely. And she just kept saying, you're a young lady. I don't like this. And she was just worried about me getting home safe. And she was mad she didn't like it. She didn't like the situation. And so the very next day, she came to work and she said, I have an idea. I was thinking of something. And she said, hear me out. And I'm like, okay. And her son had just came back from the Navy, I think. And he had bought a truck. It was a Trailblazer. Beautiful, brand new Trailblazer. And, well, SUV, right? The Trailblazer. And so she said, he just got it. He only had it for like a month or two. But he regrets getting it. And he wants like one of them trucks, big trucks, right? You know, the man's truck. But his wife is like, no, you just got this Trailblazer. We are not getting another car note because you just got this one, right? And she said, I was thinking, what if you take over his car note and you pay him instead. That way he can get his truck and you can have a brand new car that's in good condition, right? And that's safe. That's going to get you home safe at night, right? And she said, just think about, what do you think? Would you take it? Would you do it? If he agreed, right? She hadn't even talked to her son about it. This was all her idea. And I said, I don't know. I said, because I just took over their car note, right? I was talking to her about, I just took over my people car note or whatever. And she was like, Tiffany, it's not safe. It's not safe and it's not right. And, your mother, they should be happy for you if you get a better car, because that's not okay. It's not safe. It's not right, right? And so anyways, she said, would you take over it? And I said, okay, yeah, I would. And I didn't think nothing of it. I didn't think absolutely nothing of it. When I tell you my supervisor was not playing behind me, she had that conversation with her son right away. She talked him into it. She got that man to agree and say yes. He came to our job the very next day. He brought the Trailblazer. I thought she was just talking about it. The car was brand new. Same year we were in and everything. Brand new vehicle. Had leather interior. It was super nice. He fresh out the Navy. He got that good credit. Jesus is Lord. Nice car. So nice or whatever. And this man looked me in my eyes. You could tell, he didn't play. And he said, and his mama don't play either. His mama don't play either. And he looked at me. He said, I don't know you. He said, but my mama speaks very highly of you. And my mama don't play. So I'm trusting you because my mama trusts you. And he looked me in my eyes. He said, my mama don't speak like this about everybody, but she speaks very highly of you. And so we made a deal, it was no paperwork. It was just verbal that I would take over his car note. He would trust me to send the money to his account every month at a set time. And he was giving me a brand new car, right? That I would not have been able to get on my own. And I was going to pay him $400 a month for it, right? Which was $100 less than I was paying for the van my mom and them had talked me into getting. That was cutting off on me. That was y'all, I didn't notice at the time, but the way that car was shaking, it was going to completely just stop working. you could feel it each time the car was cutting off. I don't even know what was wrong with it, but the way it kept shaking, that car was going to eventually just stop working. And I think that they knew that. I think they knew that. And so I was excited. I didn't even expect it to happen. I never even said anything to my mom about it because I didn't think it was going to actually happen. My supervisor was not playing. She set that thing up and they came right away. And so I told my mom I'm going to have to give her van back. And, you know, that my supervisor had set it up to where I can get a better vehicle because the van was cutting off all the time. And sometimes it felt like I wasn't going to make it home. And I had an accident already, got pulled over by a cop, and it seemed like the van was getting worse and worse. And I didn't have the money to afford to fix it. And so I gave my mom the van back, and I told her the good news that my supervisor's son was going to let me take over their car note instead. It was $100 less than what they were asking for the van, and full coverage insurance. It was, you know, in excellent condition, brand new car. And I thought my mom might be happy for me, but you know, she was mad, and her husband was mad at me too. And I felt really bad about it, but at the same time, yeah, it was a really bad deal. It was like a really, really bad deal. And long story short, after I gave her van back and, you know, told her I had got a different car instead, which was a better deal, a car that worked, and it wasn't going to get me stranded, because like I said, the van just kept cutting off all the time and I couldn't fix it. What she said when I gave her keys back, she said, well, okay. And she was mad, and she said, well, if you're not going to be paying for the van, then you're going to have to start paying rent. And I said, okay. She said, I'm going to have to start paying rent for the room that I was already occupying, you know, the room I grew up in as a teenager or whatever. And she said, well, you got to start paying rent to be, you know, to stay in that room or whatever. And I said, okay. And I said, so how much is the rent? And she said $500. Jesus is Lord. This woman said $500. So since I gave her car back, it was like she gonna get her $500 from me one way or another. And when I told her I couldn't afford that, you know, I had just took on this car note from the new vehicle, which was $400. I couldn't afford to pay them that and then pay her that too. She's like, well, I'm gonna have to figure it out. And long story short, you guys, her and her husband were walking around mad at me. And I felt bad, and I just didn't know what to do. You know what I'm saying? And these were different situations when I was younger that all I could do was feel bad constantly feel bad. And later, you know, as God was going over things in my life and my history with me, he was exposing things left and right. And it was just like, that was wrong, Tiffany. Right? God had to expose to me that was wrong, that they should have never put you in a car like that. They tried to make it seem like they were helping you by telling you, hey, I got a vehicle for you. They tried to make it seem like they were doing something kind to help me, right? But in truth, they were just trying to help themselves, because my mother was trying to get out of that car. She hated that car, and she was trying to put it off on somebody else, and nobody in their right mind would have took over that car note for $500 who knew any better. But here I am, fresh out of high school, barely 18. They're not talking about helping me get a car. I know they weren't going to co-sign. I know they saved no money for me. I know they weren't even considering helping me. They hadn't helped with anything else growing up, so they hadn't invested in anything concerning me. They never put anything towards investing in me growing up, whether it was time, money, energy, anything, resource, like they never had. So I knew I was on my own, like I was always on my own. And so it just left me feeling bad because I didn't know any better. And God was like, it was a bad deal to begin with. Y'all, fast forward time when God was doing exposing in my, like, with my family and stuff. My baby brother had his first job, and God brought to mind how my baby brother would get off at 2 o'clock in the morning. He would get off at 1, either 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the morning, and they would pick him up every night, and they never complained, not once. They would pick up, like, my other siblings from work. They never complained. It was never a problem. But it was almost like anything done for me was a problem, right? Concerning me, it was always a problem. And even like when I would play, excuse me, when I would be playing sports, when I played sports when I was younger, and how my mom never showed up to none of my games. They had to beg her to come. She said she didn't want to come because she thought it was, basketball was boring to her. So she didn't want to come. And so I was just happy she let me play. So I didn't make a big deal out of it. Fast forward time, when my baby brother got older to play, she wanted everybody in the family to come show support. And I was excited because my brother went through this shy stage. So when he played basketball, he was excited. So I wanted to show up and support him too and cheer for him. And so I came to the first game and we cheered for him. And his games were every Saturday. And then I came to the next game, the next Saturday, and cheered for him. But I was tired because Saturday was my only real off day to where I didn't have to, do a bunch of other stuff. And so I remember at the time I was married too. I told y'all I've been married before. At the time I was married too. And Saturday was the only day that me and the man I was married to at the time, that was the only day that we had, like, for ourselves, right? Sunday mornings, we always went to church. Saturday was the day we could sleep in and we could do whatever we wanted. That was like the only day we had out of the week like that. And she wanted us to come to the game every single Saturday morning. And we went the first 2 Saturdays, but we retired because we had missed our Saturdays where we could sleep in and just have, that time. And so when I told her, and I think I was pregnant at the time too. And when I told her, Mom, we're not going to better make the next Saturday retire. We want to kind of relax that Saturday because that's our only day to, like, have our free day. She made me feel guilty, like I was not being supportive by showing up, to his game. She made a really big deal out of it. It made me feel really bad. And God had to bring to mind, I played basketball, a whole entire little basketball season. And she didn't come to she only came to one game because they begged her. And so it was like, God had to keep showing me different scenarios, you guys. I don't think like this. I don't expect much because I was never given much. And not trying to say it in no sad way. It just is what it is. God had to show me a lot of my expectations are what they are because of what I was given. And then I've never been the type to really ask for much either. I've been more of a giver, but I've been surrounded by takers. So I've been surrounded by people who have high expectations of me, but I could have no expectations of them, right? They would expect things from me that I cannot expect from them, right? Jesus is Lord. And so anyways, God would bring up little scenarios like that. He kept bringing these things to mind to have me identify wrong things, things that were just wrong, Okay, you guys, I'm going to continue. Lord have mercy, I'm tired. I'm going to continue. But so back to what we were talking about. After I gave them their car back, they were acting funny with me. My mom and her husband were, especially him more so, he would hold grudges. And like I said, he already didn't care for me like that. And so, and he would go out of his way to talk poorly about me. Even when I was a child, a teenager, he would go out of his way to talk poorly about me to different people. And I would hear about it sometimes because sometimes he would talk about me to the wrong people, to people who knew me, so they knew better, and he would make himself look bad. But Jesus is Lord. But fast forward time, they ended up getting into, like, that house we was in ended up flooding multiple times. And then they ended up getting into a pinch. Like, I was still 18 at the time though. Yeah. to where they were just going to give up on the house. They were going to give up that house. I don't remember what all happened, but they were deciding to give up that house and they were going to get an apartment. And at the time, my brother and his wife was staying there too in his old room to save money. And I think my brother's wife and my mom had a little incident where they had got into it and had been a little tense after that. And so we had a family meeting. And in the family meeting, my mother's husband addressed everybody, and he said how they were deciding to give up the house, right? And they were going to leave the house and give it up and sell it or whatever, or let it go or whatever. And he addressed my brother and his wife, and he was like, y'all know we love y'all. And they addressed the incident that happened when they had the disagreement. And it's like, sometimes even though family love each other, sometimes they can't, sometimes they have disagreements and stuff. But it's basically they were making up. He was trying to make up from the disagreement that my brother's wife had with my mom. So they were trying to like hug and make up and show that there was still love. But sometimes it's hard for family to live together. But he said it respectfully and out of love. And letting them know we're gonna let go of the house, and y'all have until this time frame for y'all to find a place, right? And so that's what he said to them. But he did it with all love and respect, showing that he wants them to continue, to show love to each other, and that it was just a disagreement, and he hoped they can move forward from it, right? He addressed them with all this love and respect. And then after talking to them, he turned and he looked to me. And he said, Tiffany, you are bitter. And that he said, you are better and you had to find you somewhere else to live. And so he was basically telling me, I told y'all I had moments where I would just kind of zone out. And as soon as he said, you are bitter and you got to find you somewhere else to live, I zoned out. I don't really remember what he said after that, but I knew the gist of it was they were getting an apartment. My mom, her husband, and my baby brother were going to go get an apartment. And he told me I couldn't come with them, and I had to find somewhere to live, figure out where I was going to live. And I was 18. And this was shortly after the car incident. And something God showed me later, because when he said this to me at the time, I was so confused. Because I thought I understood what the word bitter meant. And I was thinking to myself, I'm bitter? I said, how am I bitter? And I was really just trying to figure this out. What did I do? How am I bitter? Oh my God, I'm bitter? And I was in my head, like, what does bitter mean? I thought I understood the meaning of bitter. And I said, I'm not bitter. And so Jesus is Lord. It was so many times I would be so confused and feel so lost because of the different things that were spoken over me that were not true, and I did not understand because they were not true to begin with. And so when he said that, I kind of zoned out and was on autopilot. And long story short, they was basically telling me they're moving somewhere else and I can't come. And I had to figure out where I was gonna live, even though I had been living with them. And I was 18 and I did not know nothing about looking for my own place. I had never looked for my own place before, but I was gonna have to figure it out. And so I said, what else can I say? The same love that he showed my brother and my brother's wife, all that love in his voice and how he talked to them, there was no love in his voice when he talked to me. There was none, zero. And what God showed me was he was projecting, right? So that car situation where I gave them their car back, God reminded me of that didn't happen not too long ago, right? Okay, so what God had to remind me was that car situation didn't happen not too long ago. I was always feeling like there was something wrong with me. What God had to show me was he was projecting. He was bitter. So here he is addressing me, telling me I'm bitter. And I had nothing to be bitter about. God said he was bitter. He was projecting on me. This was one of the ways God showed me that a lot of the word curses that were spoken over me or things that was said about me were not true, right? People were projecting. They were being used as tools from the enemy, right? And they were projecting too. So God showed me he was bitter because I gave them their car back. And he was holding a grudge against me. So God had to show me that, right? And as I got older and I would try to take up for myself when they would speak lies or word curses, or they would try to spin false narratives concerning me to other people, anytime I would try to correct the narrative and say, oh, that's not true, or speak up for myself, I was labeled as disrespectful. It didn't matter how I said it. I could be real soft-spoken. It didn't matter how I said it. They would label me as disrespectful. And then sometimes it would get so out of pocket to where when I finally found the strength to speak up for myself, then I would come across disrespectful but it was like they would push me so far, and they would do it over and over again. And it was almost like it was intentional sometimes. But anytime I tried to take up for myself or speak up for myself, which was really hard for me to do, it would be seen as disrespectful. And so, Jesus is Lord. It's so funny because while I'm talking, I just had a notification pop up on my phone that said Black Sheep. Like a new single came out called Black Sheep. I wonder who sang that. Jesus is Lord. Oh, KB. Oh, I gotta listen to that. Okay, but but anyways, man, that's timely. But anyways, so that happened, you guys. I had to figure out where I was gonna stay after that. I slept in my car for a little bit after that because I was working a lot and I knew nothing about finding a place. My mom didn't help me. Nobody helped me look for a place. I had no idea what to look for. Like I was working full-time hours. And so at first I ended up sleeping in my car for a little bit because I still hadn't found a place. And I would go hang out in an empty house. The house that we grew up in, it would be empty. I don't know if they gave it to the bank or what. It was empty though, and my key still worked. So I would go hang out in there sometimes on my lunch break. And then I would, sometimes, rest in my car. And I guess the people who own the house found out that somebody was going in the house still, and we no longer was supposed to be in the house. And so they told my neighbor, and my neighbor said, hey, Tiff, they know that somebody been going in that house. And that man said, if he find you in the house, he gonna, you're gonna be arrested. So I couldn't go in the house no more, and I had to find somewhere else to post up. So I ended up crashing on my brother and my sister-in-law's couch for a little bit. And then I didn't want to be a bother, so I just hurry up and I found the cheapest place I could find, which was in the hood, y'all, because that's all I could afford with me having that car note and then having to pay rent for an apartment right away, right? And so there was my first apartment. I was in the hood. My neighbor was a crackhead. My neighbor was on that stuff. My neighbor knocked, like shortly after I got there, my neighbor knocked on my door in the middle of the night asking me if he could come over and chill. And then in the daytime, they would be shooting outside, like right behind my bed. In the daytime, they would be shooting in the daytime in the parking area. So all I could afford was a little place in the hood, right? And even that was so tight, I could barely afford that. So I ended up getting 2 more jobs. And I ended up, I ended up becoming a manager at Blockbuster. So I was a manager at Blockbuster, working full-time hours and overtime. And then I got a second job working for USA Today. I was delivering newspapers at night, Monday through Friday, because we didn't work on the weekends. And then I got a third job working at a clothing store part-time. And I worked 7 days a week. I never had an off day. Anytime I was off from Blockbuster, I was working at the clothing store. Anytime I was off from, anytime I was off on one job, I was always working another job. I didn't have not a single off day. And I was working nonstop, living off of energy pills and energy drinks. Okay, Jesus is Lord. But that time I had away from them too, it gave me some freedom and clarity a little bit, right? Let me see. Okay, you guys. Okay, so then fast forward time, some years later, after working around the clock, I was taking care of myself. Miss Independent. Y'all, that was like my song. I was a little Miss Independent, paying all my bills on time, working hard, taking care of myself or whatever. Fast forward time, I ended up getting one good job that paid more than all 3 jobs combined, which was the dream, which was way better. And I ended up getting married, right? And so I'm going to fast forward this too. I'm going to run through this too, because God really wanted me to focus on the relationship that I just separated from, which was my mother and stepfather, and cut ties with. And so fast forward time, I ended up getting married, and it didn't work out. It didn't work out. And so let me see. Okay, you guys, I'm gonna pause it right here. So this testimony ended up being a little long, and I can only upload videos that are under a certain time frame. So I had to make a part 2 for this. The part 2 should already be available, and you'll find it on my page. I'm also gonna have a folder called testimonies, and you can find it in there as well if it's not at the top of my page when you look for it. And I'm actually going to add the link in the description. That'll make it easier, you guys. Jesus is Lord. So you can also find a link to click part 2 in the description if you need to, okay? But this testimony continues on part 2, and you can continue listening to it on there. All right. I love y'all. Y'all be blessed.